A fairly simple operation. The researcher, one of our most promising candidates for the degree, early in the proper project, adopted the procedure of carrying his equipment with him at all times. Attending service on Sunday at the church of his choice, he recognized immediately the tone of the authentic sample and threw the switch. Exemplary. God himself designated the D-vial as the prince of the world. We must therefore never be surprised at the D-minded turning up in places and whatever in the world. All the same, it is somewhat shocking to find in our own century and our own beloved country the D-minded making their all-out attacks on the sacred institution of holy matrimony itself. After all, the Blessed Mother herself was married. And after all, marriage is a sacrament, same as the holy orders, though of a lower rank. Some things you'd expect to be sacred, among them the sacraments of the Church, but it was not to be, and we must gird ourselves against the attack of the D-minded. At first they called themselves birth control, and then they went about peddling their nasty devices to the poor and the downtrodden, the exploited, the expropriated, the slum dwellers and the wave slagers and decent people, ignorant to be sure. Faithful daughters of the church, mostly but easily seduced by the visiting Protestant ladies with their ribbons and starch, their baskets of cookies and jam, and their hint of a job for young Millie when the girl was ready to enter service. Did it ever strike you we'd been through all this before? Well, we had then. In the old country, they did the same thing, and they did it for centuries with no success. They killed the men, and they stole the land. And when the people were starving, they said, "Cry down with the Pope," and worship the King of England. And they said, you'll get a bit of soup. And, well, we didn't. We didn't get any soup. We held fast and we went without soup, and we wouldn't worship the English or the Binglish king. We got out of it at last. It was over the sea to the land of the free, but the English had gotten there first. Well, not really first, you understand. Christopher Columbus was a Catholic, of course, and before him, America was actually discovered by St. Brendan, and an Irish priest of God who came over in a coracle. But the English came and stole the land from Columbus and Brendan, so when the rest of us got here, the Protestants were in charge. There was nothing we could do but work on the railroad, dig ditches, and enter domestic service, all at low wages and for long hours. It was into this situation the birth control moved. Lived happily in comfort. They said, by breaking the sacred commandment of God. Well, never mentioning the fact that if your own husband would pay something like a decent wage, we'd all be happy in a hurry. Well, we beat them back with our great battle cry, not birth control, but self-control. We trounced them so roundly they slunk out of town. Like a thief discovered, they had to change their name. They called themselves Planned Parenthood now and pretended to be several other people. Planned Unparenthood is more like it. Their siren song today is not about comfort in the slums they built themselves, but about the population explosion. The Indians are in danger. They have too many babies. The Indian Indians, not the American Indians. Some time ago, the Protestants solved in any advance of any population explosion among the American Indians. They killed them off, and those who were left they locked up in concentration camps. They're still there. You can go and see them. They make pretty pottery baskets and do rain dances for the tourists. A race despoiled by the earliest form of birth control, which was murder. But about the Indian Indians and all their babies. Let's say, for the sake of argument, the poor Indians are in trouble. They don't have enough to eat. Wouldn't you think that a man with the brains God gave him would say to the Indian, "Sit down, friend, and have a bite to eat." Not the birth controllers. They say, "The reason you're hungry is you're too free and it's easy in performing the marriage act. The box of our little devices, just take them along to bed and you'll be all right." But the man is starving. Or else they say, "Just lie down on this table, my good man, and while we do this little operation on you, perfectly painless, fix you up in a jiffery. Cooperate with us and you will never have to worry about feeding the children because you won't have any children to feed. And I ask you."
A point worth noting about India. It used to belong to the English, the Protestants, you know. The Indians finally threw off the British yoke, same as we Americans so long ago, same as we the Irish in the grand times of the IRA. They're good people, the Indians, the Irish of Asia, you might call them. Or our own St. Francis Xavier was out there for years and years and had nothing but praise for them. Well, anyway, the point I was making. The English ran the country for decades, and believe me, the Indians didn't get any more to eat under the English than they did under themselves, and in all those years, there was never a word about the starving and Indians or the population explosion. In those days, it was hit 'em on the head and grab their jewels, and oh, the woes of blight and burdens of man trudging back to England under the weight of all of their loot. What do you suppose is behind it all? At all, I tell you.